Hello, everyone, and today is the October 28th, 2021 edition of SIG Instrumentation. We have a few items on the agenda today. We will start with action item review and announcements. The announcement is Code Freeze is coming up. It is November 16th, only like 3 weeks away, so don't let that catch you by surprise. Action item review, I had been tasked with an ask to see if we can disable PRs or issues in repos like Kubernetes metrics or other things staged out of the main Kubernetes repo, so people will stop filing issues there because we found a bunch there. There are currently no issues there from what I can see. I did talk to Contribx, and they basically said it's not possible to disable PRs. That's not apparently a feature of GitHub. We could turn off issues, but that's not something that they currently support with their like Git ops configs or something like that. So there's a bit of a discussion about it, but like no obvious solutions that we could turn on today. So that's that. Any questions? Han, you said you had a couple of items for the agenda. Oh, I see it's on there now. Cool.
Yep.
A bunch of mentors are getting promoted to stable. Awesome. We'll come back to that later. Next, we have Sally with Kubelet Open Telemetry Tracing Cap.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring attention to the cap. I'll just share my screen just so yeah, the enhancements up for 120, it would be 124, right? Which is a while away, so I'm not in danger of missing it, right? The enhancement freeze, I always.
Okay. No danger at all. The enhancement freeze will be in like January of next year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay, and can I share my screen? It says I'm disabled.
Let me give you co-host.
All right, cool. Because I want to show you, I did hook up. So recently, tracing was added to Cryo, and I started a kubeadmin cluster with Cryo enabled, and then it was etcd and API server because they also, have experimental tracing, but like the chain was broken because kubelet. So that's really why I wanted to add kubelet. I just wanted to see the chain growing, I guess. And so I was able to enable that in, okay, here we go. Let me find the right tab. It is not showing what I want to. Let's see. Sometimes it just shows up if I move things around. Just a sec. So I have some traces that I would like to show you guys. Yeah, I guess this might work. Do you see the SIG instrumentation notes or no?
Yes, and also
Yes.
your calendar.
Yes.
And you see Jaeger now?
Yes.
Oh, and my calendar. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't. Actually, let me just move it over then. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'll move it to my other monitor. I had the same problem yesterday. Well, it's not a problem. I think now you can just see Jaeger. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, just I have it running, but I'll pull up the cap. It's 2831. It has been reviewed a bit, but if you guys can take a look, I definitely, I'm not like an expert with Kubernetes architecture. I think you guys know more about that than I do. So I have questions like, where does it make sense? Alana, I did, Elena, I'm sorry. I did take your feedback in the API review too. So that's in there, pushed now. So yeah, and then along with this, I also have the PR, and that has been reviewed more than the CUP. And so you can find it easily. It's through the CUP. And okay, let me show you some traces, and then I want to talk about, I can just go into the second thing on my agenda too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can see with API server, cryo, etcd, and kubelet, like say, you want to look at this one, you can see, oh, if there was an issue, it looks like, kubelet's taking a lot longer than cryo. Like, this is what I need you guys to help with, this group. I don't have like the context for like, why is this gonna, change the world? Like, what problems is this gonna solve? At KubeCon, I watched the correlation, the correlating data presentation. If you guys saw that, it's really great. There's a few applications where they showed some issues and how they solved them with correlating traces with metrics, and that was great. But like, is there anywhere that we can go to get more of that? Like, who's using this, I guess, is my question. And why did we as a group like land on open telemetry? Is it because that's what's there in the community right now, that's what has the momentum? Like, or was there like a more informed decision about open telemetry tracing is a really good fit for Kubernetes? These are the questions that are spinning through my mind.
That's a good question for David, I think, a little bit. But I would also add to that, like, there were at least two competing standards previously. There was Open Census and something else, and those got merged into Open Telemetry. Or Open Tracing, right? So I think that in part it's just, this is the thing that the community's kind of centralized on and backed, and that is why. Also, Open Telemetry is a CNCF project, so. Yeah. In general, Kubernetes, it's like why Prometheus as well. Well, it's a CNCF project, and in general, Kubernetes has sort of focused on integrating with CNCF supported technologies. So,
yeah. All right, that's what I know too, and it makes tons of sense to me. But so I'm also a member of this other group called Operate First, and there's a telemetry working group there, and it's a collaboration with some research people from like Tufts and Harvard and BU, and then it's Red Hat's a supporter of it too, but it's really supposed to be out in the open. It's just new and it hasn't been yet. But the researcher was asking me yesterday about this question, like, why are we tracing asynchronous or synchronous or transactions, and what is this going to be used for, and all of these questions that I couldn't answer. So I wanted to kind of just get a discussion going here, maybe in another meeting, but something to think about. And then with that group, Operate First, I have the opportunity to stand up a long-running Kubernetes cluster with tracing enabled the way that I have it here. This is just a single node kubeadmin cluster, but is there anyone that would like to help me by like helping me set it up or getting some varied workflows running on it? Like, the research people, they really want data and they want to evaluate like how we're using tracing and then get back to us and be like, oh, these people have like PhDs in tracing specifically, like, oh, you could use it this way and this would make a lot more sense. Or if you configure your sampler this way, you could get all this more information. So that's something that I want to set up, and I'm wondering if that sounds interesting to anyone or helpful, or yeah. So those are the two topics that I wanted to bring up at the same time today.
So personally, I think tracing is pretty broadly useful, mostly because Kubernetes is pretty distributed, and basically the cardinality of events is just too high to be digging around in logs for different components. Yeah, and you just need connective tissue sometimes in order to debug a problem. And tracing structure. And basically tracing gives you that, and metrics only give you metrics per component. So that aspect is really only solved by distributed tracing.
And don't you think that the real benefit of tracing is going to be like that KubeCon talk was talking about, just correlating, looking at hints in the metrics and then being like, oh, that's where I need to look, and these are the traces, and then the logs are stamped with the trace, and so correlating those things together, and that is what is possible with open telemetry. That's not possible if you use different tools for different things. So
yeah, that's like stage 2. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Sally,
yeah.
can you tell us a little bit more about the trace that we're looking at right now? Because
Yeah,
to me, this doesn't look super useful.
Oh, right. So yeah, so in this cluster, I have, it's just a straight up nothing running except for a test deployment, and it's a mutating admission webhook. I can throw the links in the doc so they're very reproducible. So I figured this, and I can, let me go back because you can see like the API server. I can scale it too to create some activity. That I set this up a couple of hours ago. Yeah, let me go here and scale it. But so yeah, my idea was that would create a lot of activity with etcd and API server, right? I figured with the mutating emission webhook, so that's why I chose. But that's the only thing that's running here. It's just nothing else.
Yeah, because when I think of like kubelet tracing, there are like specific hot loops in the kubelet that I would care to find information about, and nothing that I could see was there. Like, I'm not sure what this container status is. I'm not sure what the entry point of code and the exit.
Let me see what I have with kubelet. That's so I have so I because I started with cryo, I tried to, so here's the kubelet, and here are the operations with kubelet, and I just wanted to see kubelet with cryo. So I have the gRPC calls, like with the runtime service.
Like, what is status, for example?
Pod sandbox status.
There was one that was just called status.
Oh, let's see.
I think it was
container status. Yeah.
So that's the first one that we looked at, and that one is like quite fast from what I could see.
Yeah.
With some like slower tail ones. There was one that was just called status. I don't know if that was like full pod status or
maybe it was
under kubelet. You had just scrolled past it.
Under kubelet. Oh, okay. All right. Let's see.
It's like closer to the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Status.
Yep. Got it.
So these are like basically sub-millisecond spans. I'm not necessarily sure how
I see what you're saying.
Those are going to be, because like, okay, code is running fast. Hurrah.
Gotcha.
So if I can chime in and talk a little bit, one of the things that I think would greatly improve this in terms of usability is connecting these gRPC calls as part of a higher level flow, right? So when I previously worked on something similar to this, I guess a few years ago now, one of the things that was useful to me was to put a parent span at the entry point of something the kubelet is doing. So like one thing the kubelet might do is to start a pod, right? Or to update something, right? Like there's some entry point somewhere where it's doing maybe 5 or 6 or 7 gRPC calls to the container runtime as part of that. And so what you generally want to do is start a span at the beginning of that longer running operation to get a single parent context that's then used for all the child operations of that. And that way, like the idea with tracing is I can have a general problem that I know about, like, oh, my pod is taking a long time to start. And then I can see the sequence of events, right? Oh, it went and called create pod sandbox, and then it went and called this other thing, pull image, and that took 20 minutes. And like that way you can also link back a particular gRPC call to a particular pod startup. And that's where
so you'd have the gRPC calls like together in one span. Or
I mean, what we're getting here probably isn't that much more interesting than the gRPC calls themselves from like the cryo side. Like, I don't think we're getting significantly more information right now by like instrumenting from the kubelet side. I strongly agree with David that like what we're missing is the context. Like, how do these things all piece together? Because right now we can't see like what does the entire life cycle of a pod look like? For creating a pod or this kind of thing. Like, it requires more intimate knowledge in terms of like how does the kubelet schedule pods. But I think right now, like the information that we are getting here is there's not much benefit above and beyond the cryo traced stuff. Like, we can see, okay, this thing is taking a long time, but like not like this thing is taking a long time in the context of this. Or in this case, most of these things are taking a very short time. And so that doesn't, like, if there's a lag, for example, like say there's like a 3-second delay between X and Y.
Yeah.
That's probably more what we care about than the fact that this gRPC call was very fast.
Yeah, and I would love to have an application that I could tweak to make like to break something or to make latency, like add like a timeout or a lock or something. So I just haven't gotten there yet. And then that's really good information because now I'm going to go back through the code and look for those spots. The thing is you guys know the code so much more than me. So if there is something that comes to mind where you'd be like, that would, you know, if you could just reach out to me and or in the PR, you know, nicely.
SIG Node owns this code, so people on this call don't necessarily, but for those of us that intersect with SIG Node, we know this code, and that's probably me and David.
All right.
Some of the more interesting things when I did this a few years ago were image pulling can be really long, and it's really easy to make that be really long by finding a giant, like many gigabytes container image. If you want to show how someone, if you want to show how someone would go from, hey, my pod's taking a long time to start to, oh, image pulling is taking forever. It's really easy to see if you get that kind of trace. The other thing that can be a fun problem to debug is the kubelet needs to report status for pods, and that can sometimes be the long tail of seeing a pod become ready. And if you are spamming the API server with other junk, or if you rate limit the kubelet, I think it has like a certain number of updates it's allowed to do per second. I want to say Elena might know better, but if you lower that to something really unreasonable, you can see a big gap in there. As Elena was saying, sometimes the gaps tell you just as much as the spans themselves.
Yeah, the other thing I would add is if you're looking to come to speed to get a little bit more context on this, we, like in the last release, totally refactored, or maybe not totally, but we did a very large refactor in terms of how the pod lifecycle currently works. We did a little bit of unification, and I spoke about that at KubeCon. So if you go and watch the SIG Node recording as opposed to the SIG Instrumentation recording, there's like a short section on that. That talks about the architecture and where in which files in the code you should look.
Cool. All right, that gives me a lot to work on, and thank you guys for that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming and demoing and working on this. This is very exciting, and it's also especially exciting that this is coming to us like so early, so we can be prepared for the next development cycle.
Yeah, and quickly, one thing that David suggested was rather than now that we have two components, is to move the tracing configuration to the component base repo, so that then, you know, if the scheduler wants to add tracing, or, you know, the controller manager, then it will be a unified tracing configuration. So that in the PR that we're doing that too.
Sounds awesome.
We may want to do that as a separate refactor, but I think everybody from the API review group was happy about that. So David, you might want to take a look at that.
Yeah, we can definitely, we should at least add it to component base with your change, and then we can change the API server tracing as a separate.
That's what I was thinking. Yep. Okay.
Great.
Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sally. Han, you want to take it away with a bunch of metrics getting promoted to stable?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it on the radar. Basically, we have like 3 different components, I think, that are getting proposed. Scheduler, I don't know if controller manager, API server, and there's 3 PR or 3 issues, I think. Hold on, let me.
Do you want to share your screen?
Hold on, let me isolate my windows. This is weird because I think this is actually scheduler too. I don't know why this one is separate. Okay. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, sorry. I lost the window for a second. Let me share. It's this one. Can you guys, what are you, oops.
I could see it, but then you got rid of it.
There we go.
Yes, great.
Okay. Yeah, so we have 3 CLs, scheduler metrics. There's a few that they want to promote. I don't know. I think I had an objection to one of them, but yeah, I just wanted to throw it on the radar that we're getting a bunch of requests to promote to stable now.
That's good.
And yeah. So if you guys want to take a look at these in, offline, probably a bunch of eyes before we commit a bunch of metrics to stable would be a good thing.
And if I remember correctly, there was like one condition for the migration from alpha to stable at first that was supposed to be defined, where like a metric needed to be used somewhere, I guess, to be used widely before being promoted to stable. Do you know how we can measure that?
I think we measure that by bake time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what if the metric is not used anywhere then?
We have no way
it's been there
that,
for
right?
2 years, but it's
well,
not used.
I know that internally at Google, we use these metrics. So
yeah, I think at this point, it's mostly just going to be based on people self-reporting and saying, yes, we would like these metrics to be stable. Like Kubernetes can't call back to people's clusters and ask, hey, are you using this metric in a meaningful way? And I mean, even like that would be useless in this case, because of course the metric exists. If it's there, it's going to get scraped, but that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's querying against it. So.
And these API server metrics, I am pretty sure that we use all of these and possibly alert on these too. The schedule ones,
just asking for like the general purpose, like what if someone was just asking for a metric and we are not sure that it is used widely or not?
we should definitely ask people from the components. I mean, like, so my comment here was basically this, saying, I don't know if you guys can see this, but the component owners own them. They commit to the stability requirements, to adhering to the stability requirements. So, I mean, if they believe that the metrics should be stable, I mean, they presumably have a reason for this. We only own the infrastructure. So for us, the things that we should be doing is making sure they had proper bake time, that they follow metric conventions, that sort of stuff. But in terms of like actual usage, I don't think we're, as I said, we're in a position to know.
Or as a project, I think.
Yeah.
I would say, ask around at your place of work. If I don't think we have any objections to making these stable. I mean, it's on the component owners to either object or accept, since they will be involved in the approval. It looks like we are at time. I don't want to keep people late, but thanks, Han, for bringing this to the group. And I guess for the newcomers, you can find us between our meetings on the #SIG Instrumentation channel on the Kubernetes Slack. If you're not yet signed up, I believe it is slack.kates.io. And we also have a triage meeting at the same time slot every other week. So we may see you at triage next week. Thanks everyone for joining.
Cool.
Bye.
See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.